Welcome, everybody, to our viewers. Welcome to a special insight between the friendship of Miss Mira and me, Elena. I have known Mira, I don't know, since what, 2017, 2016, something like that. We go back to Kingdom Domain, if anyone knows what that is, mission trips, church stuff, all of that. But ever since we kind of met through people, we've developed a friendship. We've bonded through our brokenness and through our blessings and God and everything. And we've had so much fun. But what makes this episode very special, and maybe this is one out of many for years to come, who knows? I'm hesitant to even call it Elena Talks, because I don't want to limit it to, me, my business or whatnot. We haven't made a business yet where we could morph whatever this is together. But in the meantime, this is my good friend, Mira Samarik. Beautiful girl, beautiful name. And we just kind of want to go on here and talk about just even probably just kind of scratch the surface and still try to go deep at the same time about our healing journey, how we've been growing personally, professionally, the things that our heart has just been yearning to experience in our life and blessing other girls. Something that you, Mira, and myself have in common is a lot of girls will come to us and be like, wow, your story is amazing. And wow, I wish I had this. And wow, you're so lucky. And we're like, stop. It has nothing to do with luck. It has all to do with your inner self, inner being, inner healing. And the more we tap into these principles or something that makes sense and gives breakthrough into our personal life, the more we're able to share this and help many other people, girls. But let me just give a little blurb, professional background of my friend here, but she's going to fill us in. I have to read it, I'll be honest. Mira is a registered nurse with 8 years of experience working in a hospital setting. She's completed her master's in nursing as well as bachelor's in science. Mira is also is trained as a Nutrition Response Testing Practitioner, an emerging and innovative approach to healing that focuses on nutrition and nutritional deficiencies. As a natural healer, Mira helps individuals connect the mind and body to bring about wholeness and well-being. Beautiful. But break it down even more for us. Mira, who are you?
So, who am I? That's a good question. That is an always changing and always growing entity. First and foremost, a child of God, and I will stand behind that till, I don't know, last breath in my lungs. So as Liana said, we've known each other since 2016. We both started as, oh my goodness, we were like nothings back then. Basically, Liana was dreaming of her business, and I was like, how do I get out of this hospital? I'm done working here. Fast forward, and I would say that the beginning of my journey of trying to get out of Western medicine and step into a different approach started kind of in 2020 during COVID. I was so infuriated, just so infuriated with the way things were going. Mostly that people were told they shouldn't go outside. And I mean, understanding the benefits of vitamin D, for instance, and just fresh air and how important that is. And people were just sitting cooped up inside, watching TV, watching shows, and, just binge eating. A lot of people are like, oh, I got all this COVID weight now. I'm a little bit of a rebel, and I was outside every single day. I was also in California as a travel nurse, but something was birthed within me at that point where I was like, I'm a nurse, I work in a hospital, but I can't really make a difference. It's like, yeah, I can on an individual level impact the people who I touch. It's like, but I want to have an impact that goes beyond a few people. And one night I went to sleep and the Lord was like, okay, you're going back to school. So I'm still in process of finishing my nurse practitioner, but I knew I wasn't going to study medicine in the aspect of how it is, how you go to the family doctor and you tell them your problem and they're like, okay, here's a pill for an ill, they say. Um, what I was hoping for was like, how do we get to the root of your problem? How do people actually heal? And I started to realize it's more than just a pill. It's more than just one component. I'm finding there's a connection between your mind, your body, and your spirit, and everything is interrelated, starting with your very thoughts. So my hope is to help people be able to figure out what is that root cause? What is that thing that has taken away your wholeness and your wellness, right? Whether that's emotional, you need emotional healing. That's a huge component. And Elena's able to help people with that. And my component is, hey, how do we correct your nutrition? Like, what are you putting into your mouth? Because you are what you eat. And I also believe in using nature to bring about healing. So I love herbs. There's certain vitamins that I love that are made from organic produce, organic herbs. So my hope and dream is to help people achieve that wholeness and wellness, and I'm willing to go the lengths to get there.
Good. Well, I think you mentioned something kind of interesting during COVID. You know what they say, crisis or opportunity, half empty, cup full. And I think sometimes, like, yeah, people were impacted in a lot of different ways financially. I mean, me as a business person, what do? I had just stepped out of my job where I had like safety net to was like, you're always swapping pros and cons anytime you step into something new. I feel like I gave up my like comfortable job where I had a regular paycheck, all of that security, also known as trap sometimes, right? And I swapped it, for my own personal freedom. But then like with COVID, it was like, okay, wonderful, I have the freedom to make my own personal decisions, but like, if I'm not working with actual people, how am I making money? And so that's kind of where my counseling business, I felt like God was kind of pivoting me a little bit with like, let's introduce different ways of you working with people or making income. Because sometimes we go into like hermit crab mode, like, God, like, screw this, everything is falling apart. You know what, you took me out here. He's like, just remembering like the Israelites gone out of Egypt. You took me out of that to take me where? I'm gonna die here. And it's so easy to do that, not knowing when we're transitioning in that wilderness mode. And I know we have those wilderness transitions throughout our life, but as like, okay, God, like, I'm gonna sit here and pray for like magical help, of course, but like practically speaking, like maybe I do need a miracle with like water coming out of like rocks, but at the same time, like, you gotta supply, like, what's my next? And so the idea of just like coaching came up. And for me, sometimes I do have trouble kind of differentiating counseling and coaching, only because of my heavy roots in just psychology and healing. And sometimes, and you can even speak from like a nutritional perspective in your like field, sometimes people want to make these leaps and bounds and like create, manifest, produce these massive blessings. But before I feel like we could do that, we have to go internally and clean out the stuff that's pulling us away from this. Because I was even thinking today, it's like, biblically speaking, God has given us everything. Like, we can't say, I don't have this, I don't have that. Like, the truth is, the cross and resurrection says it's finished. We have it all. So what's the problem? Us, and to some degree. So what do we need to do? What level of healing, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? And I'll kind of go into my story a little bit, but how I continue to just like build and see more and more blessing and going from glory and glory and all of that. And future episodes on so many topics, but just give us a little bit of an update, Mira, about even your personal experience, whatever you feel led to share with mental, emotional, physical health. I know that you're very much into the natural stuff, but you have quite the story yourself, hence why you're probably very passionate about helping people. But talk to us about that.
Oh, that is oh my goodness, I could probably talk for hours about the journey that I've been on. I think I will say, I'll go back to 2019. I had this wonderful friend, aka Elena, who was like, Mira, you got some emotional stuff
Oh,
going on. You need to go see a counselor.
oh, Frame it nicer.
It was, no, I mean, she said it in the most kindest way. Elena's always been the most kindest soul, and she's the person that can speak to me, and I would always accept anything and everything because it's always said with such love. So, yeah, I went, signed up, I invested, and I was like, I need to get out. And I remember that first few times I sat there, and I'm this like super organized person. So I had this list of like, here's all the things that are wrong with me that I want you to help me fix. And I'm willing to do anything. It's almost like I was so prepared that I was ready to like counsel myself practically.
You came to your counselor with, this is what you need to do with me. Actually, I already have a head start, but like, tell me where I'm, pivot me a little bit because I got the rest.
Yeah, basically. It's so funny to think of it that way. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is such a proud position. But I didn't know that back then. Anyhow,
Prepared. You were where you were at. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. But a few sessions in, she started kind of pointing out some things, and she's like, oh, I see some patterns. And I started to take what she was saying and learn, adjust, and grow. And that is kind of where I stepped into. I was like, okay, I'm done people pleasing. I'm going to start pursuing my dreams and what I want. And I had dreamed of being a travel nurse. I was like, that would be so much fun. I would just love that. So I quit my job. I had a desk job and ran into this unknown world where you like work from hospital to hospital, find a place to live, meet new people. I mean, it was scary, but it was so fun. And I'm so, so glad I did that, because that was a season in my life where the Lord was like, I'm restoring to you the very childhood that you felt like you didn't have. Wow. And so I ran around from like beach to beach and just basked in the love of God and went through so much healing just in that period of time. 3 months in California. It was beautiful. So that's the start. I mean, there's so much more. Would you like me to continue, or do you want to step in?
Flow into where you need to go.
Okay, so that was a lot of my emotional healing. And then fast forward a few years, 2 years of travel nursing. I was like, okay, I'm kind of done of this. I've had all my fun. I've traveled everywhere I wanted to travel. I'm ready to settle down. So I settled myself down in Renton, Washington, and just started to really seek deeper healing. I took a course most recently about femininity, actually. So I have a lot to share about that. And I realized the number one issue that I struggled with was control. So the Lord sent me on this journey of letting go of control, letting go of what I can't change, and surrendering. And essentially it's dying to yourself every single day. And like true surrender, it's what allows the Holy Spirit to move through us. It's what allows us to be more effective. It's what allows us to have a reach. And as I gave a space and opened up more and more of my heart to God, He took over all these areas. And now there are no traces of that old Mira anymore. I'm like, I used to think this way and I used to be this way. And I'm like, I don't think that way anymore. Like, I'll give you a simple example. Like the other day, it was just like, my thought process would be like, oh, nobody would want to do something like that for me. And I've shifted it to be like, wouldn't it be fun if this or that happened? Like, wouldn't it just be fun? And if not, oh well.
Get more specific, because what exactly were you thinking?
So something along the lines of, I think, like, wouldn't it be fun to be celebrated in this way? Like I was being announced as a member at church. I finally found a church and got plugged in. I'm like, I'm ready to be grounded. I ground myself every morning with my coffee and my feet in the grass. I love it.
Just big. Mira, she's like,
yeah. I'm so settled down. Crazy. I like bake bread at home, like make homemade bread. I'm like a whole new person. So learning to flow, learning to be in touch with my feelings and what I like and what I care for. And it's like I just feel like the Lord's just brought me on this journey of like, let me show you your beauty and let me show you how I see you.
Yeah.
And just this beautiful place of surrender. It's like the more I surrender, the more God is able to do through me. And it's like people around are noticing and they're like, huh, there's something different about you. And you kind of like you pulling me in. I want more of that. So it's been wonderful to see the Holy Spirit just flowing through me. So that's my emotional journey. I can go into my physical healing too.
Yeah, let's hear some about physical, because obviously we can go in so many directions. And I do have like a follow-up question about your emotional healing, but let's hear a little bit more about the physical.
So let's go back, I guess 2021. I was pretty much always a very healthy person. I didn't struggle with too many health concerns. I would have like allergies and maybe like some stomach issues here and there, nothing major. But I was working a COVID contract, constantly living in that N95 mask, and I just started to get so sick. I was getting bronchitis, pneumonia, I got COVID, and I just felt so sick. And I ended up being in Chicago and met the most incredible doctor. By purely the grace of God, it was a divine appointment. And she used a different approach on me. She started to talk about my liver, and she's like, huh, your liver is very toxic in aluminum. I was like, huh, what's that from? Well, as a nurse, you get a lot of things injected into you. Let's just say that, um, as a requirement of the job. So she put me on a heavy metal detox and put me on a bunch of like immune support. And the thing is, she never addressed my pneumonia. Like, I thought that was so odd. I'm like, well, I should probably be put on some antibiotics or something. Cause my nursing brain is like, I know the correct pill for every ill. I know every treatment, but it was different. And I mean, the very next day I was already feeling better. My cough started to subside and I started to get so much better. Well, since 2021, I haven't been sick. So that was incredible. And so I was like, well, show me what you do. Like, teach me. So I flew there a few times and she became my mentor. And she uses a different approach. It's called nutrition response testing. And essentially, it's almost like I would say kinesiology or applied kinesiology mixed with acupuncture, except I don't use needles. But it is like speaking to the body and figuring out what is it that you are lacking in. And a lot of times, the very thing we're lacking is something in our diet, right? We're not getting enough of a certain herb, vitamin, or something, and our body's reflecting that by having issues. So, like for me, my liver was just toxic. And when I detox my liver, now it's able to produce the histamines I need to be able to fight off all the things, the viruses, bacteria, and everything that I encounter. And so I don't get sick because my liver is now healthy. So I took a course and I plan to continue to advance. I mean, like I'm a person who loves to learn. I will continuously get more and more education. It will never stop. But I learned how to do what she does, and I'm starting to apply it to people around me and planning to expand my practice and bring healing to more people.
Well, I think that something that I already know I'm going to love about our conversations is because there is such a parallel between like the medical and the terminology even that you're using in the tests versus parallels with the mental emotional. Because I was like thinking when you're like, there are tests I could do to see what your body, like if it triggers your body to have a response. And I'm like, okay, like I think of like a rash test or something, or however you can explain that better. Like they put different things on your body, right? But then
Mhm.
it's like, I'm like, well, you could do the same with like your mental and emotional well-being. If we say certain phrases like you're I'm making this up, like you're unlovable, you're ugly. Like if you believe some of that, your body even physiologically, emotionally is going to have some kind of reaction. But if like, let's say if I don't think I'm fat, like someone can be yelling that and writing it, and if it isn't like I don't believe that at all, I'm not going to even react to that. It's going to just slide off, right? But if there's something in me where I already feel like I'm struggling with this, you're right, I can't even blame them the external, like contaminants or whatever word you have for that, particles. I can't even blame anything external when it's just reflecting already my own internal issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure that you could even talk more about how your mental, emotional, and physical healing. And there's a lot of science that even talks about mental, emotional issues we have undealt with will manifest itself in physical, external, like help, like look at me now. If you want to keep ignoring the emotional stuff that comes up for like years, if not decades, it will be expressed in your physical outside body, internal body, outside. It doesn't matter, so that people can start paying attention. Like at that point, your body's screaming for some level of help and attention. But we've talked about this. I sometimes just don't always know what's purely physical, medical, period, versus emotional. To me, there's always going to be factors that intertwine people's different coping mechanisms and learned behaviors, et cetera, and we'll break down a lot of that. But I kind of wanted to go back and ask you some of the discoveries maybe that you've even made about yourself, because you said, oh, the Mira that I was is so different. I'm so different now. What's the difference between you feeling like you got this, you go to your first counseling session, here's what I need, bullet points, check, like I already thought of it. Like, what's the difference between you caring about things and being prepared, that type A student versus like, what? I have control issues? What do you mean? Surrender? Like, but I'm smart. Like, talk to me a little bit about that. I don't know if I'm jumping way too in the beginning, but I don't know. That kind of came to mind.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, a lot of times we don't see ourselves. We don't see ourselves until someone from the side points something out. And so
Yeah, sorry.
the moment that I sat, in front of my counselor and she's like, "Huh, Mira, you're a people pleaser." And I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting point." And she's like, "Yeah, but it stems from an innate place of you just don't feel like you're good enough. So you feel like you have to almost earn love, you have to earn respect. And it actually comes from a place, if you stemmed it from childhood, if you were given conditional love. I will love you if you do so and so. I will accept you, take care of you, all that." And so I had no clue that that was my issue. And actually the whole the level of control that I have, I didn't even realize a lot of it until this very year when I started diving even deeper into my healing journey. I was like, oh my goodness. And the Lord keeps speaking to me and he's saying, do you trust me? Like even doing this video, the things that are running through my mind, right? Oh, who am I? Like, I'm not ready. I don't have what it takes yet. But then it's like, I just flipped the script and I was like,
Yes.
you know what? I'm dying to myself. Like that old Mira that was never good enough, she's gone. And I'm like, the Lord gave me something that he wants me to share and pass on. And it is actually proud. It is pride to literally say, well, I'm going to hold on to that because I'm afraid what people are going to say. I'm afraid of how people are going to see me and they're going to think that I'm full of myself or this or that. When in reality, if I'm being obedient to God, I live to please an audience of one. And if the Lord is saying, hey, I gave you something, I healed you of all these different things, why don't you share that with people so that maybe others who need healing can get it? And when that perspective shifted and I was like, wow, like even today, my worship time, it was like, God, I just want to so die to myself. I don't have fear of man. I don't have fear of what people will say. I just want to so faithfully pass on what you've given me, really receive, freely give. And I want to pass it on and bless other people.
So, I mean, you even said earlier, you're like, oh, I was in California and that's when I did my emotional healing. But then you're like, okay, but now going deeper, this is what healing looks like. And I think that's what people sometimes don't, even myself, right? We were like, okay, healed, arrived. And it's like, well, last time I checked, I'm still not perfect. Darn. So like to me, growth elevation is always synonymous to healing and like letting go of these things that hold us back from elevating. And so like even for myself, like I'll share a little bit about my story. Physically, thank God, somehow I've always been quite okay.
Oh
um,
God.
I had stitches once, but it's because I was mishandling a knife.
Oh dear.
I think that, well, and then again, anyways, I'm not going to comment much about like medical stuff because I've been okay. But at the same time, we've talked about this. I was like reflecting not that long ago. I was like, I feel like I've been like pretty healthy physically for like a long time. Like I've had so many like stressors and big life transitions happen recently. And I'm like, I'm surprised I haven't gotten sick. And someone told me it's because I don't hang out with sick people. And you're like, no, it's because you're quite healthy internally and your body kind of reflects that. And I'm like, okay, that would make sense, right? But I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about my healing journey and we'll go deeper at some point. But I just remember also trying my hardest in life, being a good student in life, being a good daughter, being a good Christian. I don't think there's anything innately wrong with that. But when we check the motivations of our heart as to why that's happening, what really controls us, why we're obedient or good, it's always all about the internal, the motivation, the stuff that only God sees. And I'm so loud about it. Like, who cares about people's outside life? Test this fruit in the spirit, like that makes sense. But I'm saying like it's the inside, the essence, the aroma, incense that comes up. That's what God really can like see, the substance of why we do what we do, whether it's our church going or going to school or who we're friends with, etc. Right? There's always these deeper motivations in our heart or subconscious things that we're doing, and that's kind of my science. People say it's a soft science, but I would argue sometimes it's a little bit harder than the hard science stuff, Mira, like your field, because I'm trying to take these intangible, abstract things and quantify them. At least you guys can pull out your little telescope and count your little atoms and stuff like that. It's a little harder for me, but anyways, I digress. My point is, I just remember like being like, gosh, I feel like I'm like trying to be a good person. So, but why am I not experiencing some of my own breakthroughs and the desires of my heart and like the bliss? Like, we talk about medical, physical healing and wealth. Okay. I'm like, okay, thank God I have that. Like, I am truly grateful for that. What about like the emotions, the abundance? Because the Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. And like the more we're waiting for certain promises and they're unfulfilled, like people start to get depressed. People start to just like question themselves, like, what's wrong with me, and where can I act better? Like my mind would always be like, I need someone to help me figure this stuff out and give me the break, like literally diagnose the mental, emotional, and spiritual stuff. Because every time I go to like, and I say this with so much love, like pastors' wives, females, trying to get breakthrough or answer, it was just, I always felt like a door would close in my face when they'd be like, pray more. And I'm like, if I'm not praying, then nobody's praying. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, I'm so prayed out. I feel like I'm almost like missing out on life. Like, what is going on? Like, where are my abundance and promises and blessings? And more specifically, I was just trying to learn how to, and still am, to be more confident with myself, to trust the path that God has, to see the fruit of my heart's desires. And at that time, thank God, God brought in like coach, counselor, healer, all of the above guru in my life that I found online, and God could lead and use anyone. And I told her, and I said, you know what, something, if I'm just being honest, I'm happy being a good girl and a good Christian girl, but like, what in the world? Like, I don't experience love. Last time I checked, that's such a biblical thing. A man who, like the Bible says, lays down his life for the bride. I want to be a bride, And I started to work with this woman, and oh my gosh, I was like humbled. the things I started to learn about myself, like you said, having an outside person. And like, I want to specify, my life was good, but it became greater. I went from one level of glory to a higher level of glory when I started to have someone that would diagnose, like not even tell me what's wrong, because that sounds like that medical model, but she would tell me what's right and how to go and get better. And she would use language that I understood. And to me, it was spiritual and give me the psychology. Like, yeah, bring me the Bible story and dig it. Like, I need to understand those depths and dimensions. But on a psychology level, call me out. Codependency, emotional unavailableness, attachment theory, repeating certain dynamics, being afraid of being seen, being blah, 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 blah. I'm like, say how it is. I want breakthroughs. So let me digest some really hard stuff. And let me tell you in a very quick time, and this is at least my story, married to my Christ man. Literally heart's desires, but still, and I'll go deeper in the story later, still the level of healing continues because now I'm with the new Christ man. My first Christ man, Christian man, was my father, to which I'm very, like, I humble down and I honor him, and he got me to where I need to be, and he handed me off to what I believe is the next Christ man who's going to lead me to a higher level of abundant land. And what does that mean, right? It's like you're always going deeper into that promised land, and now I'm starting to encounter things that, like, some of them I thought I dealt with, but now I'm just going deeper, or new things that now I'm ready, quote unquote, to deal with, that maybe in my past first life I did not have the opportunity, availability, skills to deal with. And now I'm in a setting, in a context where it's like, okay, I'm going deeper. And so I'm constantly like challenging. Same thing you said, where else do I need to let go of control? Where else do I need to invite God to surrender? Because last time I checked, another episode for another time, this concept of like masculine, that's my dad, that's my husband, that's my God, and of them, all of them in essence, that's my male trinity. I'll just say it like that, I guess, making it up. Like my provider, right? My protector, my the one who gives, the one, like, the more I give, open up and allow the masculine God, all of the above, my husband, to come in and experience me more. But it's more like me opening up and letting myself experience myself more and share that. Whew, the better my life goes. But healing, as you know, like you getting your liver detoxed, my emotional capacity detoxed, all of it's a process. But I think we both agree, we keep saying, gosh, my life gets better and better like the older I get.
Seriously.
What do you think?
Well, you're sharing your whole thing, and what's running through my head is this journey I went on. I did this femininity course, and yeah, I was scared. I was scared to put money down. I was like, what if this doesn't change anything? And what can they teach me that I don't already know, right? It's that I already know it all. Like,
I'm like, oh, I'm a counselor, like, I mean, I don't have a problem hiring someone, but it goes down to two things: vulnerability, because that means you don't know everything. Yeah. Otherwise, your life would be figured out. So let's bust that out. And then B, so it's like that humility, vulnerability, openness. But then the other part is like, here's my rawness. Here's my dirty laundry that I've been kind of hiding. Actually, I don't know this. Oh my gosh, you're going to give me homework and assignments to push me out. Oh my gosh, but I've been using this to I want to go out, but that accountability, having that external person with love, hand selected, come into your life, game changer.
Absolutely. And I would encourage anyone and everybody to take that step. Never hold back to invest into yourself and to invest into healing and invest into growth. The way I see it is that the less of you there is, the more of God can shine through you. And you allow people to speak into your life, especially people that you look up to, and you're like, well, I like what you have. I want to learn that. And you humble yourself essentially. And yes, it is a vulnerability thing. Like I had to be vulnerable to say, I need help in this area. I didn't realize so many things. And this probably could be another episode, the whole concept of a strong, independent woman. And I kind of looked around and I'm like, I'm 30, I'm single. And I have a lot of friends that are in their 30s and single. And I couldn't figure out what is this thing that is missing and what is our struggle. And so, I mean, for the longest time, I just was like, oh, I'm cursed. Like there's some kind of generational curse over me. So I can't get married or something like that. And then when I started this course and I realized, oh my goodness, I've been doing all of this wrong. Starting with, and it's not about the guys. It's not, because like we could talk about guys for all our days. I just remember growing up, it was like from a very young age, would always walk around, talk about the guys and how the guys are not this and not that. And oh my goodness. And I realized it's like it stems from what is going on inside of you. How do you see yourself? How do you carry yourself? And I never thought that to be that important. But when I started to change internally, like address those limiting beliefs, flip the script, right? What's the limiting belief of like, well, I'm not pretty enough. Says who? The Lord says I'm pretty enough. Jesus made me beautiful. So why do I have to believe a lie that I'm not pretty enough? And so, when you start to like take the truths of God, and so one thing the Lord challenged me to every day, he's like, Mira, I want you to wake up every morning and ask me, how do you see me? Like, how do I see you, essentially? So I asked the Lord, how do you see me? There you go. Not like the word verbiage here is difficult, but when I allow the Lord to speak over me, and he's like, I see you as perfect. I see you as beautiful. I see you as fearfully and wonderfully made. And you start to believe that, you hear it enough and you start to believe it. Oh my gosh, literal game changer. It's like, I don't care what you tell me I'm not pretty enough. Like, your word doesn't have any weight. I know what the Lord told me. So there's just been this entire transformation. I mean, and I have so much more I can share about that journey. It could be a whole podcast all in and of itself, the healing of the femininity journey. So I'm excited to share more.
That reminds me, I've thought about this a couple times when you're like, I'm not pretty enough. Says who, right? It's like, it reminds me of the garden, Adam and Eve in Eden. And it's this concept of, the Bible says like we're made wonderfully, fearfully woven, created, just these beautiful things about how we're like literally created in the image of God, the divinity. I mean, there's so much like, royalty and all that references. It is done. We're supposed to be living like outside of time, bringing in like living out of the finished works of the cross, right? All of that, it's done. It's finished. Perfect. But the problem is when Eve was in the garden, right? God had given them everything other than this one stipulation. And that's when Satan came in and started to like spin lies, like, oh, like you guys don't know everything. And when we start to listen to the wrong voice, which will be spoken through people and even our parents and generations, like this little evil voice is slipped in.
That's a good one.
Right? Like, who told you? And don't and God, like it starts to mess with our mind. Like as soon as we like get off the post of what's true, then we're just like susceptible to
You're having too much fun.
oh my gosh, I can't stop. And then when she messed up bearing the fruit, which in her experience was death, if not literal, then eventual, right? That whole concept. When God said, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we're naked. And God said, who told you?
Mm-hmm.
They started to build a whole life based off of that belief. Like God never said it was bad, never said it was wrong. By the way, I would argue initially everything was good because it was like neutral. like everything is good. There was no bad. It's only when we start to pervert and twist things and you're not enough and if this is taken, like these lies, the opposite of truth is just lies. And when we start to listen to that, starts to take seed in that. And when we start to believe it, we start to act out what we believe. And so I just had this moment not that long ago, same thing, like a voice comes up, snake, subconscious, old generation, the old creation, however you want to say it, I don't care. But this voice kind of came up also like, oh, you're not enough here, or you're not confident enough there, or you're not smart enough or good, this crap that we're all trying to filter out. And I'm like, yeah, no, and as soon as I hear that, it's just like a whiplash, like, who told you you're not good enough? And I'm just like Eve standing in front of God, like, like a serpent through the lineage, the generations. And he's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, well, I guess not listen to him. Okay, then how are you going to move on and live your life today? Are you going to continue to sulk in that? Or are you going to be like, I'm a child of God, I got this, continue your morning and do your thing like a champion? It's this constant, like, I'm trying to do life, and then certain stuff comes up and we deviate, but it's constantly like staying the course of what God has told us in regards to the truth about our identity. Very what are true. Some thoughts, things you want to add before we kind of start to wrap up? And we definitely got to do an episode for next time. And by the way, to our viewers, comment, like, subscribe, drop us in your comment section conversations you'd like us to have, whether it's medical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, both. You guys know our backgrounds and even personalities, and we can like chat about that. But how do you want to even like wrap up today, Mira?
How I would like to wrap up is that first of all, I want to give people hope that there's so much more to come. And there is a way out. And we don't have to stay in our old mentalities, and we don't have to stay stuck. There is a way out. So I just want to encourage people who are just at the end of their wits and who are just like, nothing ever changes. And I see a lot of, especially young women who are just frustrated. They're really frustrated, especially Slavic culture, where we're being fed the lie that there's something wrong with you if you're not married by a certain age, right? We're always searching, what is that thing that's wrong? So I just want to encourage people that there is healing, and healing is found in Jesus, and there's ways to access that. And I would love to help people. I would love to help people break off codependency, just like the Lord broke that off of me. I would love to help people bring healing to their bodies, and to feel wholeness and wellness. And so I just want to extend the invite for people to continue to have the hope and know that there are answers out there, and the Lord's going to bring them to you.
Amen. Later on, you guys can see our different like services that we'll offer. And I know, Mira, you're starting to branch off and even start to take private clients. So what I'm going to do with this video, in the caption, I'm going to tag your account. And if anyone has questions or anything, they can talk to you. If they have questions in regards to my counseling or coaching services, do talk to me. Something else I wanted to share really quick is I am having a small group coaching happening starting May 31st. If you were watching this video before that, so DM me or email me, ask me any questions. It's 4 weeks, and we start to really go into like inner healing. Like I have some assessments from a psychology perspective. Like it's almost like running your code, your diagnostics, like what's going on with you. No, I'm not saying you're diagnosed with depression. No, it's more like, what are your patterns? Like, what do we need to illuminate so you can start to break off, so you could break off sabotage? So do sign up for group coaching with me, and do watch for more episodes with Yelena and Mira. And thank you everyone who has joined and listened. Hopefully you have enjoyed this. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me.